This is the TRU Leader Podcast. Today we talk about today's rapidly changing work environments and how it calls for continuous transformation. We talk about polarity intelligence and how it supports this model for growth and sustainable transformation. Don't go away.
Before we start the episode, we just wanted to check in. Are you a leader, entrepreneur, or small business owner feeling the burn of a never-ending work cycle? Do you find yourself longing for the passion you once had for your career while your personal life sits on the back burner? If the conflict between your professional ambitions and personal fulfillment is leaving you drained and dissatisfied, it's time for a shift. You're not alone in this struggle. Many high achievers find themselves trapped in a cycle of sacrificing personal joy for professional success, staying late at work, being constantly on call, taking on more than they can handle, and waiting for a slower time at work that never comes. This relentless pursuit often leads to a life that feels unbalanced and unfulfilling. But what if you could break free from this cycle? What if you could excel in your career, earning the respect and admiration of your peers while also living a thriving, joyful personal life? Imagine having the time for what truly matters to you, maintaining your health and well-being, and experiencing deep satisfaction in both your professional and personal worlds. It's not only possible, it's within your reach, and the journey begins with one decisive step. Click the link in the show notes and join us for our free webinar, Stress to Success, the formula for leaders to excel professionally and personally. This webinar is designed specifically for individuals just like you who are ready to reclaim their passion, prioritize their well-being, and achieve a harmonious balance between career and personal life. In this webinar, you'll discover the formula for maintaining high productivity and influence in your professional life while also nurturing your relationships, your health, and your personal interests. Don't let another day go by feeling stuck on the hamster wheel of work-life conflict. Register now for the webinar, Stress to Success, the formula for leaders to excel professionally and personally, and take the first step towards a life where you can thrive in every aspect. The link is in the show notes. Your journey to fulfilling career and a joyful personal life starts here. Don't miss out on this opportunity to transform your life. Register today. Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Christofferson.
And I'm Michelle Trosett.
We are life and business besties, leadership coaches and mentors, and polarity intelligence experts. We're the authors of Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and co-founders of Missing Logic.
We are here to help high-achieving leaders break through leadership norms that cause them suffering at work and home. If you're looking to elevate your leadership, increasing your productivity, effectiveness, and impact, and manage your health and well-being, spend quality time with those you love, and live your best life, then you are in the right place.
Our goal in this podcast is to equip you with new ways of thinking and practical and tactical strategies for succeeding at work and thriving in life. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of personal and professional development so you can reach your full leadership potential, create a life you love, and be what we are calling a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable or true leader.
If you are ready to learn and laugh a little, let's get started.
Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tracy Christofferson.
And I'm Michelle Trosett, the other host.
The other
hostess.
The hostess with the mostess.
That's right.
The hostess, the co-hostess. Yeah, that's who we are. Here we are, another fun-filled, laughter-filled episode of the TRU Leader Podcast.
Yes.
Because that's how we roll.
Words of wisdom that you can take with you today.
Ooh, yeah, pack these away. We're
Yes.
talking about change today.
Ooh, change.
Who
What's
doesn't
that?
love change? Lots of change everywhere, right? Change.
Change.
Change. Oh, boy, you don't want to hear that part.
We're not singers.
No.
We're just podcast talkers.
That's right. We may do occasional karaoke, but you don't want to hear that either.
No, you
probably.
don't.
It's not good, especially if we've had a couple. We get bolder than we really want to be, right?
Oh my gosh. It's been a long time since we've done that.
It has been.
Wow. Okay.
I'll have to put that on the list. All right. Well, there's been a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
There continues to be a lot. Like change is just, right? What do they say?
Inevitable.
Mm-hmm. Change is everywhere. It's always going to be there. It's never going to go away. But it just seems
It's
like
only constant.
there's a lot of it, and things are happening so much faster than they ever did before.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because we're older.
I don't know.
We're not younger. But I think it's just a time we're living in, right? It's a time we're living in, a lot of exponential growth in a lot of different ways, and especially in technology. I mean, just think about how life is different. I mean, podcasting.
Amazing.
Looky here. Here we are, podcasting over the airwaves that didn't even exist years ago, right?
Yep.
Working from home, Zoom, the ability. I was the first remote worker in the company that we worked in, and we had to do teleconferencing.
Yes.
That was the technology of the day. Couldn't see anybody's face, but couldn't get your word in edgewise.
Tracy was coming through this round disc in the center of the conference room table.
That's right.
That was how we connected.
Yeah. Well, AI. Look at AI.
Yeah. Look at
Talk
phones.
about technology. Phones, smartphones, right? We don't even have cameras anymore. We just have smartphones.
Yeah.
Our computers on our hip, right? I mean, how many places do you go where there isn't a self-checkout?
Oh,
grocery stores, even
the
in
dollar store,
even in the airport now.
Pharmacies. Yes.
In the airport.
Yes.
They have self-checkout, right? I mean, telemedicine. Talk about technology change, right? Being able to care away from the bedside, right? To care for people, to monitor people. I mean, it's just amazing.
My pharmacy, I had to change my pharmacy this morning. I was on my computer and did it in one email to my provider. Like that wouldn't have happened before.
Oh, no.
I can see everything.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. See all your lab results, like everything.
Like by the time you get home, you get go get your labs run. By the time you get home, there they are.
Right. And a lot of this is driven because we're so connected to, right? The internet itself, right? We have information at our fingertips. We can gather significant, huge amounts of data we never could before, right? All of this is a driver, right, for change and transformation.
Yeah.
And we're living in this world that's demanding it. It's volatile, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of ambiguity, that VUCA world we're in. But, again, this is where, change and transformation, adaptability really is a strength. It really becomes a strength.
Yeah.
And a necessity in these kinds of times, right? So, and another thing that's happening, a lot of consolidations of businesses, right?
Huge.
A lot of mergers, a lot of acquisitions. It's amazing what's happening in the world and the change. And, a lot of this, not all of it, but much of it was brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a huge disruptor, not just for organizations, for, communities,
families,
but on the personal level as well. Right. And we're still living in the aftermath of that. A lot of businesses closed. Right. It's just had a huge impact financially on many, many industries.
Yeah.
So, and like for us, major change in our last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 7 years now.
Who's counting?
7 years since we left corporate and, began our journey to run our own business. So, yeah, just
lots of change.
Lots happening out
everywhere.
There. Hold on. Hold on to your fanny.
And there's also, from a leader perspective, there's also a lot of leadership norms when it comes to change that have been around for a long time. And so we wanted to highlight a few of those in today's podcast episode 2.
Because we're busting through norms. And change will help you do that. Change can help you do that.
Oh, yeah. You can leverage it, right? You can really leverage.
You got to know what your frame is.
Yeah.
Why you might be concerned about some of these changes. Yeah.
Well, one of them is that I need to have all the answers, and I'm responsible for leading and making all the changes. And there's a lot of norms around that, and with leaders that they hold a lot when it comes to change, and that they believe it's up to them to make the change, and that can that can really hurt them too when they think that they're the only ones and they can't tap into other people to help them.
Right. And especially in such uncertain times,
Oh,
right?
yes,
To be,
especially now.
be the holder of the future, which is what they feel like, right?
Yeah. Another one is, once we get through this fill in the blank, things will slow down, and it could be really easy to think that sometimes, like, well, once we get through this merger, things are going to slow down. Once we get through this, whatever, things
new
will slow down.
initiative, right? This new implementation, this whatever change that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end because there's
Whenever
another
I get
one
this
right behind
project
it.
out the door,
That's right.
things are going to slow down. And then also we need to change to keep up with whatever. So there's always this sense of urgency with leaders that they have to keep up with what is happening. Like some of the examples you just shared, Tracy, AI. Like what are we doing about this? We got to keep up with it. We got to be ahead of the curve. And there's still so much competition in the world too when it comes to change that as leaders, there's this sense of urgency to always be ahead of the curve when it comes to changes as well.
Then you're taking on so much, right? And changing so many things, right? Because you're kind of in that FOMO.
Yeah, you are.
That fear of missing out, right? If we don't do this, they'll get ahead of us.
Yeah,
right.
And then leaders can create a lot of chaos in their work environment and not make the traction and never get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
I've seen that a few times. And then leaders also that they are the ones that drive change. And again, this whole belief that change is episodic. Once we get through it, things will calm down.
Yeah. And sometimes, the thing about the leadership norms is they're subconscious. You don't even know that this is your operating system underneath the surface, right?
Right.
It's just what leaders do, and others have role modeled for you. And so you're following along behind it, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay there. And this is the opportunity to bust through those norms, right? Let's create some new norms. That's what we're all about. Yeah. We want new norms. So we're really talking about this today because we read a Harvard Business Review article, and it was a new model for continuous transformation by Michael Mankins and Patrick Littrey, I think. I'm not quite sure how he pronounces his last name. Sorry about that, Patrick, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are.
Google alert.
Yeah, there we go. But really what they're doing is making the case for, that we have to step away from the traditional model of organizational change and transformation as kind of a start and a stop, right? Like a project. We start, we do all these changes, implement all these things, and then it stops, right? We're done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the model that we've grown up in and that we have been operating under for many, many years. And what they're really bringing to the forefront is it's not applicable anymore in most cases. Now, it might be for smaller changes or smaller transitions. Yes. But on the grand scheme and the grand scale of things, there is, we have to have a fresh approach. We have to have new ways of looking at. Leaders need new ways of looking at it. Something that is really more around continuous change and continuous evolution in the business and work environments. And, we are people and human beings, and we're always evolving. And so if we're evolving, our work environments need to evolve as well, right, to keep up with the demands of those that we serve and to meet the demands of the individuals in the organizations, right, that are your workforce. That's another factor here, right, as well. And what they actually did in the articles, they referenced Lewin's 1950s model of change, right, their change model of unfreeze, change, and refreeze, right, and it was that constant, application of that, right, to unfreeze, make a change, and then refreeze, right, so that start, stop, right? Yep. And that is effective in some short-term cases, but in the long term and with the massive amount of change and evolution that we're facing with right now, that VUCA world that we're living in, that model will fall short today, and is demanding this continuous evolution, this ongoing transformation of the organization and the workplace.
Yeah, so they share 3 key drivers to really have this new mindset and this new way of looking at things. And one of them is to adapt an agile mindset, right? And that is, and they said this one is rethink, reshape, repeat. Rethink, reshape, repeat. So it's just that it has that ongoing agile mindset when it comes to transformation and change. And the other thing that I love that they pointed out is it doesn't start at the top. It is the top and throughout the organization. Like everyone needs to have that way of looking at things. The second one is to use aspirations to continuously challenge and stretch the organization. And again, this is to challenge everyone throughout the entire organization, which I think is really important. One of the things Tracy and I, in working with leaders and organizations for over the last 20, 30 years, is one of the biggest fears is changing for change's sake. Like that doesn't make any sense. We're just changing for change's sake. But if you have aspiration, people understand why you're changing, and it's throughout the organization.
That's about motivating too, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to motivate people. If you have high aspirations, then they want to achieve that, right?
That's right.
They understand the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the third one is to build transformation into the company's operating rhythm. And I like the way they frame that too. It's not operating system, it's an operating rhythm. And this just helps to point out that the change is an accountability through all levels of the organizations. And it's important that we kind of bake it in, we build it into how we track strategic imperatives, how issues are resolved, and and how we identify new issues, because they're always going to be there. And it just ensures this transformation remains an ongoing process. So those are the three key drivers of how to have this continuous transformation way of looking at change in today's world.
Yeah, and what I got really excited about that is that it's so aligned with having polarity intelligence.
It is.
And a polarity mindset, right? And we know polarities are ongoing. And so a couple of things about that is that, like, many of the challenges that we face are not problems we can solve. We know that. Not everybody knows that, but if they're listening to our podcast, they should know it by now, right? You guys all know that,
yes.
Our listeners. And I think that's what this is bringing forth, right? It's not about an either-or thinking and choosing a solution to a problem, applying the solution, and stopping. It is about what is the ongoing needs, right? Where are the challenges ongoing? Where are the polarities in this challenge that need continuous monitoring and vigilance, right? And it gets to that rhythm, that operational rhythm. So I kept thinking about how you can identify the polarities, right? Identify the outcomes that you want, that greater purpose you're striving for, that higher aspiration that you're striving for. And then putting into place your action strategies to get those outcomes, to keep driving you towards, but monitoring all the time, right? Evaluating, how are we progressing? What's working? What's not working? How can we, be agile, make changes? And it just aligns so well with the polarity mindset and the polarity intelligence, right? And again, it's that vigilance, the agility to continue to monitor and make changes. The other is the sustainable positive outcomes, right? So it is about sustaining positive outcomes and getting towards that greater purpose. And I think, again, it's what are the interdependent poles, so that we don't have that unilateral thinking and that, that problem solving either or, but we've got a both and thinking. We need both of these. We need to have, they're equally important. We need to give attention to both, and how are we making sure we're driving both of these in the organization. And the other thing was to drive it through the organization is really to leveraging assessments of polarities, right? To get everybody's perspective about what is being experienced and how successful are the strategies we're applying, and what are we experiencing? Are we experiencing any over focus in one area, neglect of another? Are we experiencing any downsides or negative consequences, and how that might be showing up in an organization? So I think that was, something as well. And then again, the transformation and the just kind of that cultural component to it of really, inviting everybody's voice and their perspective into this. And I think that that's another key thing, right? With a meaningful dialogue and healthy relationships. It's like we all own this, right? We all contribute.
We all have a common understanding how it works, common language, how to speak to each other about it. Yeah. So it's really powerful. And to your point, Tracy, because polarities are ongoing and they never end, they are continuous. And this article was about continuous transformation. So the alignment is absolutely perfect. I totally agree. And there's been some really amazing outcomes from companies that have discovered this. What happens when you have this continuous transformation. And there's 2 older studies we thought we'd cite today in our podcast. They're what we consider milestone studies on how critical it is for companies or organizations to manage what we call the change, stability, polarity, or it's the same concept of continuity and change, same premise, same concept. And one of them is from Jim Collins and Porris's work that they publish in Built to Last, kind of like I think every management course in every university.
Oh yeah, Built to Last.
Built to Last. It's a classic.
Landmark book, really.
And what they did is they studied what distinguishes 18 gold medal companies from 18 silver medal companies. And the significant performance of the companies came down to 4 key concepts. One is to be a clock builder, an architect, not the time teller. So just to get in there and to do that work and to create. And number 2 is to embrace the genius of the and, which is really what gets you out of the either or thinking or the stop and go thinking and more into the and both thinking. And so that was really critical. Number 3 was preserve the core and stimulate progress. And that's essentially what we're talking about in this podcast episode, right? Mm-hmm. It's preserve the core. So having that stability is going to be really important, but also stimulate progress, because we always got to be looking at what are changes that are needed to get to that greater purpose as well. And another polarity, Tracy, that kind of occurred to me in thinking about this was tradition and innovation, because innovation is such a hot topic these days. And really, it's about tradition, preserving some of the core that has traditionally been there. Maybe not all of it, but some of it, and then also moving into innovation.
Well, and I think when you talk about that, I think it's so important. The core is the essential, right? It's like the core of who you are as an organization. Like you might change how you do things, you might change expand who you serve, but the core, the heart of the organization remains the same, and you do the actions that maintain that core, right? It's not just tradition for tradition's sake.
Right, exactly.
But it's the things that made you who you are that will always make you who you are, kind of a thing. Yeah.
And then the 4th one was seek consistent alignment.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of gets to alignment throughout the organization too, right?
Yep.
That's awesome. Another study was done by McGrath in 2012, and he studied how growth outliers do it. And this was a Harvard Business Review article that we found on this. And what he looked at was how many publicly traded companies with a market capitalization of over $1 billion grew by 5% for each year for 5 years. And that study, they were exploring the time frame. It ended in 2009. And what they found was there were 10 out of 2,347 companies that grew the net income by 5%, and that's big, especially year after year, right? Consistently, and the growth was not explained by industry position, the age of the company, the geography, any emerging or developing economies, like all the things that you might think would typically influence that kind of a growth, right? It wasn't about ownership structure or global footprint, but their ability to manage continuity and transformation. So again, these are, they're older studies, but they point to, right, the fact that it wasn't these other factors. It is the management of these polarities. It is the leveraging of these polarities throughout the organization that enabled them to either be a gold medal company or to really exceed when it came to their growth.
Yeah. Now, because Tracy and I see polarities wherever we go.
And you do too,
And
I'm
you
sure.
do too. Yeah, you do too. We thought what we do is just to show you how they show up and how they really help with the greater purpose of continuous transformation, we would look at some polarities that are underneath the covers related to the 3 drivers that were shared in this this article, which were the agile mindset, the using aspirations for stretching the organization and building transformation into the organization's operating rhythm. And one of the first ones that popped out of us was the polarity of vertical relationships or hierarchy within an organization, and horizontal relationships, more so partnering relationships with an organization. And it is the power of the and. It's both of those. And that's how you really have successful change throughout all levels, when you have both of those poles working together for a greater purpose. And then one of the things we talk about in our book, Polarity Intelligence, the Missing Logic in Leadership, and we actually show a polarity map of the vertical relationships and horizontal relationships. And one of the infrastructures that organizations can put in place are councils. So we have that in our book. And then within that council infrastructure, another polarity is shared work teams. And they help with identifying issues that are sometimes long-term, so you can have long-term shared work groups, or it could be a temporary issue, and then you can have a short-term shared work group.
Yeah. This is really, I just want to bring, this is an example of engaging everybody in the organization, right? Because in a council, you have all members, right?
Yes.
You have all the different roles and responsibilities represented, right, in their work area. And so you've kind of got the leaders and the doers and the followers, right? You've got everybody represented that is essential to the work of that team or the work of that department or that area. And that's how you tap into the wisdom of everybody in that structure. Yeah. For those of you that don't know what a council is.
Yeah, exactly. And you also have the leaders that are in that hierarchy connected to that council. So it's not an either or, they are working together. Yeah. So that's another key thing. But when you're talking about constant changes, the whole shared work team concept really is a great mirror for how to do this. So we wanted to bring that up. And then also with people, if you want it throughout the organization, it's really looking at how you set goals from the top of the organization, but then you get everybody involved wherever they are at the point of service to also contribute to those goals. And again, doing that through a partnering council infrastructure is a great way to have local level alignment and motivation to work towards goals.
Yeah, I think it gives them the ability to, see how do we actualize this in our area? How do we contribute, right? Yes. So you can take something that's an objective of the larger organization and give some flexibility, right? That structure and flexibility. Give some flexibility to the individuals in their different departments and their different teams to say, okay, how can you take this and make it yours, right?
And own it.
And own it and know that you're driving to make your contribution to the bigger outcome, right?
Right.
So it's really, really great. It's a great system for that. So as these polarities pop out of us, here's another one. Long-term planning and short-term planning just pops right out of us. We can't help ourselves. We just can't help ourselves. So when you think about long-term planning and short-term planning, right? When you think about long-term planning, I'm thinking like 3 to 5 years, right? They're where we want to be. And we do this in our business, right? We have a plan out. What is it that we want to have achieved? How many people do we want to have impacted? Those kinds of things, right? In 3 to 5 years. And then the short-term planning is what are our goals this year, right?
Yes.
Like what are we striving towards in this time frame that will contribute to the achievement of that greater goal? And it really is also in the current state being agile, right? Yep. And being able to be adaptable to the things that are changing, because you can't predict where things will be 5 years from now necessarily these days, because everything's so volatile,
and it's
right?
Happening so fast.
Everything's changing so quickly. You're going to have access to data 2 years from now that you never even dreamed of having right now, right? So you've always got to be in that agile way, in that agile mode in the current, with your current goals, and being not afraid to make changes, not afraid to course correct, not afraid to pivot. Yeah, we've pivoted a lot, right?
Yes.
Because things are changing so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
While you're keeping your eye on that bigger, larger, long-term plan, you've got to be modifying your plans as you're going along, right? Based on the feedback and the information that you're getting. So that's another one. The other is just the current reality, future state. Again, this is one that you live individually and collectively as an organization. And it really is about optimizing the outcomes of today. So your current reality, what you're driving towards, where you're striving to achieve, and taking the actions that are going to get you the most positive outcomes for right now based on what you're striving for. While at the same time, right, again, you're looking towards what are the innovations, what are the changes we need to make to keep us moving forward, to keep us relevant, to keep us in the game, right, regardless of what industry that you're in. And so I think that's just another
It's a great example.
Key polarity that we need to think about. And then directive decision making and participative decision making. This is, again, getting back to how do we engage everybody. And this is about hearing the voices and the wisdom that sits in all of the different individuals in their different roles, in their different teams, in different departments that can have a contribution to that initiative, to that transformation of the organization. And it is about building it into the operating, system, and the way that you operate, but not only how you operate, but who you are, what you represent as an organization. And then I think too, it's just this is another place where assessing the polarities, right? What is our reality? Getting the voice of the individuals throughout the organization to really, as a leader, help you put your thumb on the reality, right?
Yeah.
Like on the pulse of what's truly happening. Many times we're assessing external, maybe not always internally what's happening, and it's our perspective. And so there's a lot of different experiences in an organization. So, when you know what polarities you need to be managing, when you assess that, you can get your thumb on the pulse of that, and then you can make maybe more informed decisions, more well-rounded decisions, because you have the perspective of more than just yourself or your leadership team.
Yeah, the other thing that really came up for me is that when it came to getting the participative decision making, is the whole concept of consensus, and how if you really understand what consensus is with a group of people, how it really fits the rethink, reshape, repeat process that they talk about. Because it's not about a vote, of change. It's really coming up with the best situation, rethinking it, reshaping it together, making a decision, and then reevaluating it and repeating it. Like, it's an ongoing process when it comes to consensus too.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to bring up. And I mean, consensus probably isn't going to happen all across a large organization, but it can happen within the within the department, right? We're gonna put this in place, and then we'll reevaluate, right? Sometimes not everybody agrees, but to your point, we can come to consensus that this is the right next step to take, and we're going to go there, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll evaluate. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's the ongoing evaluation.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
So some of the things that Tracy and I do to live this continuous transformation on an ongoing basis, and we would invite you to think about what you're doing in your organizations or your businesses as well, is really applying polarity intelligence to all aspects of it, and so that we can keep ourselves dynamic, our business dynamic, as we go through all of the significant changes that are occurring around us. And one of them is to really leverage the Entrepreneurial Operating System, the EOS system by Gino Wickman. So this is just a really helpful process for us to always keep moving forward and readjusting as we need to. And so if you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, it's really helpful to manage the continuity of change on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, quarter-to-quarter basis, and year-to-year basis. Mm-hmm. And it just keeps recycling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Recycling through. And changing as we go along at the same time. Another thing is just to have frequent daily check-ins and monthly same-page meetings. So that's one way to keep your finger on the pulse, to reevaluate, to reshape if you need to all along the way. And in our same-page meetings, we are always just dialoguing about where are we now with how we're moving forward, and it gives us a chance to evaluate our current state, our future state, support each other as partners. So those are some of the core rhythms that we built into our business.
Yeah. And I think the other, which some of this isn't rocket science, and it's just, annual goal setting as well, right? And quarterly goal setting. So really knowing where we're headed in the year, and then what the progress is each quarter as we move forward. Where do we need to be dynamic? Where do we need to be agile? What do we need to change? What are we seeing? What are we experiencing within our organization, but also externally with our clients? What are the demands, right? What's being asked for? And just really, we have a lot of processes around that. And what we are measuring ourselves, looking backwards. How far have we come in the last quarter? And where do we want to go? What do we need to think about? But just kind of what's been working well. What do we need to change? A lot of those kinds of elements as well. We always look at our core values. Our core values are polarities. And so we're always evaluating how are we leveraging these polarities, as Michelle brought forth, right? Applying polarity intelligence is one of the ways we do that. And because we know our core values are polarities, we're always looking at and assessing how well we're leveraging those and managing those. Are we experiencing any negative consequences, that type of thing. So that's a big part of our analysis and our ongoing look at what's happening, right? And where we need to course correct, or where we need to implement new action strategies or new goals, right? And sometimes it's about letting go of some goals and implementing new ones, right? Because things have changed or evolved. Yeah. And so again, maintaining the core, which for us is our core values, and living those polarities on a day-to-day basis, that's what helps us to be agile and to be moving forward, right? So that's a big part of us. And then kind of just after-action reviews. We're big fans of after-action reviews and evaluating on an ongoing basis, whether it's the development of our podcast and the post-production of that. It's anything that we've implemented with clients. Is how did it go? What could we do better? What did we learn? What do we want to change? What would be, more valuable? Like just, any element of it. We're always evaluating and assessing kind of how things have gone and what's been our experience, what's our clients' experience, and just really listening to what we're hearing and what we're feeling about how things are going.
Yeah. Exactly. So do you see why we got so excited about this article?
Yeah, I just love that. I mean, and it kind of took me back to our roots too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Is, we were all about not just projects and change, but really about transformation. This is about transformation.
Continuous evolvement, continuous transformation, and the alignment now with the polarity intelligence, and to make it more, even polarity intelligence come more alive, more transparent about how it fits into this this really important concept of continuous transformation. And that, it's really important that we're always monitoring it. We're always looking for the early warning signs if we're falling off track, evaluating the impact of our action steps, which is why the assessments are so important, and identifying and resolving overcorrections, and knowing when to course correct. There's a lot we can say about that too. So understanding these principles and how they work, and having the tools and the skills to navigate continuous transformation too is really important. And just think of continuity and change as a both and. If you just even frame that up, it can really help, as it helps you hold both. It's continuity and change. And both you and your organization are continuously evolving, and that is why you and the work even exists. So we hope you found this this podcast episode stimulating.
Yeah. Stimulated us. There you go, right? So once again, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you as our listeners. And if you get a lot of value out of this, please share it with others and leave us some reviews. We'd love to hear from you, what you're taking away from the episode. And, if you found values, others may find value too.
Yeah.
Right. So share it. And, if you don't want to miss any of these episodes because they're just so jam-packed full of joy and energy and information and transformation, then subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Or, if you like to watch us on video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll be happy to have you there, right?
Yes.
So, till next time, stay safe and stay healthy.